Hey everyone, welcome back. Now that we've covered what n8n is and what you can build with it, it's time to get hands-on. So in this lesson, I'm going to walk you through the n8n interface so that you can understand exactly how to navigate it, what each section does, and how all the core pieces, the nodes, the workflows, the triggers, and executions fit together. By the end of this lesson, you'll feel completely comfortable inside the n8n editor and you'll be ready to start building your first AI automation. Let's get started. So when you first log in into n8n, you'd land on the dashboard. So this is your home base and this is where all your workflows live. So as you can see, we have the workflow tab and we also have the credentials. Now for the workflows, you'd realize that you'd see the name of the workflows, you see the status, whether it's active or it's inactive, and when they were last executed. So it does show us like the last updated time. And if you come under the executions tab, you'd see the last executed workflows, especially the ones that are in production as well. And then from here, you can simply click on new workflow. By clicking on new workflow, you get the ability to start afresh, or if you don't want to start afresh and you want to edit an existing workflow, you can simply click on the existing workflow and you can do that. Now, at the top in here, when I come in here as well, you see other important information like if you've had any failed production executions in the last 7 days, you get to see the failure rate, the time you saved, and the runtime average. You also see things like executions, which I've already talked about. You see things like variable. You see things like the data table as well, which is all great. Now, let's click on workflows again and let's click on create workflow so that we can step inside the editor itself, because this is where all the magic happens. The workflow editor is sort of like a visual canvas where you build your automations by connecting blocks or what I call the nodes. And at the top of the toolbar, you would see the ability to change the workflow name. You'd also have the ability to sort of either like share your workflow, set it as active, or you also have the ability to save the workflow as well. Now, when you come to the right-hand side here, this is really where you see your nodes. So if you click on the plus button, you can decide what sort of nodes you want. Now, if you're starting at first, you first want to make sure that you're adding a trigger. But for this lesson, we just want to focus on the interface. So we are not going to be adding any trigger in here. But really what you see here is the nodes. And also when you click on this, you have the ability to sort of like search within this canvas. You also have the ability to like open a node. In here, you can really add in like a sticky note. So if you're building something and you want to include comments or notes, then this is exactly what you need to do. You just have to click on the sticky notes and then you have the ability to do so. The good thing about the sticky notes is that you can color code them. If you want to be a lot more granular and modular, then it's very good to like color code them as well. Now, this gives you the ability to like zoom the workflow whatever way you want it to. So if you want to like, for instance, zoom in, all you have to do is click on this icon. If you want to zoom out, you click on this icon. If you want to like reset the zoom, you can click on this icon. And if you want to like sort of tidy up things, you can also click on this icon as well. Now, the other important things here as well is self-hosting. So if you're self-hosting, this is where you get to know that you actually need to go in. It would usually tell you the number of versions you are behind. So what you just have to do is you click on this bell here. If you realize that you are versions behind, then this is a good indication for you to upgrade your self-hosted instance as well. Now, if you click on this, this really gives you the ability to like get more information about n8n. So if you want to take a course, you want some documentation, there's a lot of like quick start guides here as well, which is really good. Now in here is where you get a template. Okay, so for instance, if you are just starting out with n8n and you want to have some templates to start with, then all you have to do is click on the templates here and you have the ability to see a lot of templates in here, which is really good. Now most of these templates are free, but then if you go through all these 6,000 or so templates, you realize that some of them are paid and some of them are free, but then they do have a lot of free templates at least to get started with. So at this point, I'm going to walk you through like the core nodes here. So when I click on the plus button, you can see that there are different categories in which you can trigger your workflow. So for instance, you can trigger your workflow manually. And if you want to trigger your workflow manually, you just click on the manual trigger here here, or you can trigger based on an action in an app, okay? And there are a lot of apps that you can trigger your workflow from. So you can trigger from Airtable, you can trigger from Telegram, you can trigger from Asana, you can trigger from AWS. So there's so many different ways in which you can sort of like trigger your workflows, especially if you want to trigger your workflow from an application. And this makes it a lot more easier as well. Now let's talk about like on schedule. So if you want to sort of have a workflow that runs at a specific schedule, then this is what you would have to use. You can trigger your workflow on schedule as well. Or let's say you have a form on your website and you want to trigger your workflow from that website as well, then you would want to be using, let's say, a webhook call. And so this node here would help you trigger your workflow from the webhook as well. Now let's move on to on-form submission. So this is a form which sits within n8n. So if you wanted to trigger your workflow from a form that is being generated from n8n itself, then you can use this on-form submission trigger as well to trigger your workflow. Now, if you want to trigger your workflow when another workflow executes, then you can really use this one as well. You can use this trigger, and this trigger here would run the flow when called by the execute workflow node from a different workflow. This is when things start getting a lot more complex and complicated when you want to be calling a workflow from another different workflow. Just think of it like calling a function from a different function or from a different code, entire program or code that you write. Now, you can also trigger a workflow from a message you send inside n8n itself. So for instance, if you want to have like a conversation and you want that to trigger a workflow, then you can really trigger this workflow from that. So if I click on open chats, for instance, and you had like additional nodes connected to this node here, then just by sending in a chat would automatically trigger the workflow as well. Now let's look at the last way to trigger a workflow. If you want to trigger from like multiple triggers as well, this is something you can do. And again, like I said, this means that you are going into the complexities of like building AI agents or AI automations or even automations in general in n8n. So now that we've looked at the various triggers, another thing I want us to look at is executions. Okay, so anytime your workflow runs, one of the most important parts of using n8n effectively is like by running executions. Okay, so the good thing is that you can view like past executions when it's run, whether it succeeded, whether it failed, or how long it took. This makes it incredibly easy to debug and optimize your workflows as well, because sometimes things may fail. So once you open on executions, you'll be able to see the error and you can rerun it from any step where it failed. So executions basically gives you some sort of like audit trail so that you know exactly what happened at the back end. So here's how everything fits together. Okay, so just think of nodes as like your building blocks. They define the actions, and also think of triggers as what starts your workflow, and then think of workflows in general as like the connection of nodes together to perform a complete automation. And another thing you should also not forget is executions, because they show you the history of how those workflows run, and together they can form the full automation lifecycle inside n8n, from the setup time to the running to analyzing results. Before we wrap up, here are a few quick tips for when you start experimenting. Always test nodes individually before connecting them all together. So like I mentioned, you can use the execute node button often because it helps isolate issues. Also keep your credentials organized because you reuse them across multiple workflows, and also give each node a clear name like send Slack message or summarize emails so that your workflow is easy to understand. And as we progress in this course and we start building more sophisticated workflows, you understand what I mean. So yeah, that's a quick tour of the n8n interface, from the dashboard to the workflow editor to the triggers, the nodes, and execution. And in the next lesson, we'll build your first real workflow step by step so that you can see how all these pieces come together in action. So see you in the next video.